And then there were 8, the number of announced Democratic candidates for president in 2020, that is. This week marked the formal declaration by an expected top-tier candidate, Senator Kamala Harris of California, whose name is now added to a field that already includes Senators Elizabeth Warren and Kirsten Gillibrand, former HUD Secretary Julian Castro, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, and 3 others, including the first openly gay presidential candidate, Pete Buttigieg, mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Here to help us evaluate this large field, which will undoubtedly continue to grow a lot, is Jeff Charles of LibertyNation.com. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Tim. Great to be here.
Great to have you. Looking forward to our discussion. And let's start with Kamala Harris, who essentially announced her candidacy when she interrupted Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley 3 times in his opening sentence introducing the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. She seems to have it all going on. A woman of color, child of immigrants, unstained by white privilege or toxic masculinity, fairly young, but not too young. Would she be considered the front runner at this point to win the fight to try and unseat President Trump?
Yes, I think so. I think Kamala Harris is definitely a front runner. She checks all the right intersectionality boxes, and that's important because the far left can't risk perpetuating white supremacy by electing the white man. So she's black and she's a woman. That gives her 2 intersectionality points right there. She's become very popular on the Democratic side. Now, some have criticized her for reaching out to Wall Street in some of her past decisions as a prosecutor. I don't think that those things are likely to slow her down. So she's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Now, does that mean that a Joe Biden or even a upstart progressive like Beto O'Rourke, who narrowly lost the Senate race in Texas to Ted Cruz, does that mean that they're pretty much out before they're in because of the fact that they're both white and male?
Well, Bobby O'Rourke, he might be a contender. Joe Biden, he's polling high right now, and so is Beto, but it's still early. So I think Joe Biden's going to be a little bit too old by the time it gets to when the campaign gets into full swing. You never know. But the intersectional wing of the Progressive Democratic Party is very strong and very loud. So I could see those numbers start to go down and people like Kamala Harris and Julian Castro start to rise up.
All right, let's talk Pocahontas, Senator Elizabeth Warren. She seems to have the ability to organize and raise money. But is her disastrous DNA test and her posturing as someone she's obviously not enough to sink her?
You know, I honestly have no idea why Warren is even bothering at this point. I mean, she on the intersectionality scale, she has 1 point because she's a woman, but she's tried to steal another intersectionality point by pretending to be Native American.
Cultural appropriation.
Oh, exactly. So after she released that DNA report that shows that she's about as Indian as Ocasio-Cortez is economically literate, she completely sucked her chances. And honestly, you mentioned it, cultural appropriation. I do not think that they will forgive her for that.
All right, well, let's move on to another woman who checks one of the boxes because she's a woman, but she's also white. And that's Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who was virtually handed her Senate seat by Hillary Clinton. But then after Hillary lost to Trump, Gillibrand threw the Clintons to the wolves by saying Bill Clinton should have resigned in the 1990s. And she now seems suddenly woke. What does she bring to the table?
I'm sorry, I forgot who Kirsten Gillibrand is. Because nobody really cares about what she has to say. I mean, really, she's basically just the second coming of Hillary Clinton. And if the Democrats are smart, they're going to sprint in the other direction when she starts campaigning. So yeah, you're right. She did throw Clinton to the wolves, but that's only because she forms her political stances by putting her finger up in the air to see which way the wind is blowing. Mm-hmm. She has flipped so many times. She makes John Kerry look like the epitome of consistency.
So you're saying that Senator Gillibrand is like Hillary Clinton without the charm?
I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I don't think that the word charm and Clinton should be used in the same sentence.
Okay, well, that's just your opinion. I'm not sure that most of the voters agree with you. I'm sure her personality had nothing to do with the fact that Trump wiped the floor with her in 2016, but that's another discussion. So, Jeff, do you think this Democratic primary will descend into a race to simply see who's furthest left and who hates Trump the most?
Well, hating Trump is a prerequisite, so I don't think any of them hate Trump more than any of the others. But it'll be interesting to see if the extent to which somebody veers to the left is going to have a contribution to who gets the nomination. I mean, Bobby O'Rourke and Joe Biden are pulling high right now, and they're not as far to the left as like Elizabeth Warren. But at the end of the day, Democratic voters hate Trump enough to vote for anybody who's running against them. So it may not be an advantage, but it may not be a disadvantage either if somebody is too far to the left.
Well, it won't be a disadvantage within the Democratic primary, and that's the point, that can anybody get the nomination that doesn't satisfy the far-left progressive base, while at the same time understanding that a far-left position is unlikely to get them over the top against Donald Trump. But, by the way, I noticed what you did with Beto O'Rourke. They're calling him Bobby. Why is it that so many conservatives refuse to call Beto O'Rourke Beto?
Because his name ain't Beto. He's not Hispanic. The guy's as Irish as a pint of Guinness. The fact that he's another one who tried to steal an intersectionality point, but I think they've kind of forgiven him. Elizabeth Warren can't get away with that, but for some reason, Bobby can. So I give him credit.
All right. I caught what you did there. So who among the Democratic field, including those already in the race and those expected to join, like Cory Booker, which of them do you think gives the Democrats the best shot to take down Trump?
You know, I would love to see them nominate Cory Booker. It's not going to happen. I think Kamala Harris has probably the best chance, but you never know. Somebody like Julian Castro could follow Obama's path of being somebody who's relatively unknown, but who gets catapulted to the national stage. It seems like he might have that charisma, but I think so far, if I had to bet on somebody, it'd be Kamala Harris so far.
Okay, fair enough. You're going to go with the odds, which have her in the lead at this point among most prognosticators. But the fun is just beginning, Jeff. We've got about, 22 months to go before the election, and the entertainment value we're going to get from the Democratic primary is almost incalculable, isn't it?
Oh, most definitely. What I'm looking forward to the most is seeing Trump's Twitter feed when the Democratic debate starts. That's incredible.
Indeed. Indeed it is. Thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Thanks, Tim.
That is Jeff Charles of LibertyNation.com. We'll break away for a moment and then come back to discuss the rapidly deteriorating state of Venezuela and the audacious decision by President Trump to recognize a new unelected Venezuelan president.